Hello, everybody. My name's James, and today I'm delighted to be joined by one of the most successful managers in Sky Fantasy football this season. No, it's not Sujan Shah. Unfortunately, Suj is away doing real work, as he would call it. For me, this is real work. But you will hear from Suj at the end of this show because Suj is top of the May Manager of the Month. I'm not going to reveal what he did last night, but he's got himself a handsome little lead in the Manager of the Month. He is 6 points clear, having an absolute weldy. He will blow it, but he's going to give you his opinion on what he might be doing tonight at the end of this show. So you will hear from Suj. I can't believe the people actually want to hear from Suj. Probably not. One person I'm sure you will be delighted to hear from is my guest today. That is Neil Currah at FPL Kernow, currently ranked 7th overall in Sky Fantasy Football. How are you, Neil?
Good, thanks, James.
Good man.
Excited to be on.
Pleasure to have you on, mate. What's your history in Sky, Neil?
I've probably played for about 4 years. My wife's family, they had a league, so they asked me to join. Probably didn't take it that seriously or know what I was doing to start with, but yeah, the last couple of years I've taken it pretty seriously. Finished 18th last year, and then 7th at the moment this year.
That's mad consistency, mate, to be top 20 2 years in a row. You're what? How many points are you off of? Dave Perrins is 1 point clear in first, I think, at the moment.
Behind, I think.
Do you think you can still win it?
I think there's a chance. It's probably a low chance, but if I'm going to have to take some punts and some differential captains.
You've got to go for it. Or is there a thought of consolidating to try and finish top 5? Because I think you're 13 points off 5th, which is very realistic.
No,
are you kind of halfway in, or have you got to go for it?
Got to go for first when you're there, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't disagree. What do you get for 5th?
A console, same as Suj.
Suj is getting one of them for Manager of the Month, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he thinks. So you've got a good historical record in Sky. I think probably to cover one of the things people want to know is like how have you done that 2 years so consistently, top 20? What is it you think that's setting you apart, that's putting you in that position?
I think a lot of it's probably down to luck.
Cheers, Neil. We all feel better now.
No, I think I'm sort of a very risk averse manager. I'm a tortoise. I hoard my transfers.
Ian Parham will be pleased to hear that.
COVID's probably helped with that in terms of you've got extra postponements to make gains on the fixtures towards the end of the season. So the last couple of years, that's probably been an advantage. I think last year on Frank's site, you can look at the leaderboard from last year, and he's got sort of a split game week 17 where people were, and then at the end for the top 100. And I was 9,000 something for game week
halfway.
17. Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously, I think I had probably 35 transfers left in January last year.
So it just shows the massive gains you can still make from kind of the halfway point, if you will. I know you said to me off camera you had sort of like 25 left at overhaul this year as well. So you're very much of the strategy, hold the transfers back and then make the real gains in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Do you think that comes down to the fact that obviously the longer the season goes on, the more information we've got?
Yeah. Well, I tend to look at the stats quite heavily. So start of the season, new managers, new teams promoted, things like that. It's hard to predict the tiers quite so easily, I think. Obviously, you get managerial changes mid-season, which you have to try and account for. But the further into the season you go, I think the better idea you get of who's going to be picking up those tiers consistently and which teams are going to be scored against.
Do you skip captaincies regularly?
I wouldn't say regularly. I think it's a hard thing to do.
I really struggle with it.
I have skipped captaincies this year, yeah. I skipped.
If you've got Southampton versus Newcastle, for example, do you look at that? And actually probably bad example with Ward-Prowse and Goalkeeper.
Yeah, I did have Ward-Prowse at overhaul. Yeah. But I think I skipped Wolves. Was it Wolves Newcastle maybe?
Yeah.
When people went into Kilman.
There's a lot ended up around Bruno Guimaraes around about. I mentioned Ian again. I know he was on Bruno Guimaraes around about that time, wasn't he? He was done very well
Yeah, I ended
recently.
up on Bruno for, I can't think, there was it a game on the Sunday when they were playing and
The
Leicester
two
were
goals
playing.
against Leicester, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up with those points. But I think, yeah, a bit earlier in the season, people were on Kilman for, I think did he have a couple of single game days? Was it against Leeds as well?
Yeah, Leeds on the Friday night before that as well.
But I had Norgard as my enabler because I wanted my enabler in midfield so that I could have a big 5 at the back. Whereas I think a lot of people ended up with an enabler in defence that they then had to try and turn into one of the big defensive players. And obviously, like, Ramsey's done pretty well.
Yeah, until a really unfortunate injury. I see his ownership's taken a little bit of a dip in the top 1K. It's down to about 47% ownership.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of people are just going to leave that now, obviously hoping that he's probably, I mean, Steven Gerrard hasn't ruled him out of Sunday.
Could be back at the weekend. But
yeah, it's easier said than done, though, isn't it? The idea, I think most of us would go, yep, want the enabler in midfield. We've had other people kind of develop like Dewsbury Hall. He's not returning massively, but he's enabled for a few. I mean, a few had his return when he scored and assisted a few weeks back as well. It sounds simplistic to say your enabler's got to be in midfield, but it's not necessarily as simple as that, is it? Particularly when you're looking to cover off a team like Wolves and someone like Kilman sitting there at 6.2.
Yeah, it was a risk. And after overhaul, I think he did get a few clean sheets and maybe a couple of passing tiers as well, which Norgard wasn't doing quite so well, and it seemed like a decision that had possibly gone wrong. But then I think just not having to use the transfers to move that around has probably helped in the long run.
I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, I can't believe I did. To be honest, it's happened to me both years. But then the enabler last year, Stuart Dallas, for a lot of people who I just was without it nearly all season. And the same's happened to me with Norgard this year, where I feel like you want to identify early. It was interesting listening to Paul McNulty on the Hub podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about looking at promoted teams and looking at some of their tackle numbers ahead of next season and stuff. See if you can identify the next Norgard. But then, is that fair to say it was Dallas last year? Really felt like the one.
Yeah, I think I would have thought so. Yeah.
There's no guarantee it'll be the same next year, and you need to adapt. Which
and it does change. Like Dennis at the start of this season was at 5.5.
Did you own him? Obviously, when he was doing well.
I don't think I did, actually.
Not many people did either, but I mean, you look back on that hindsight, his first half of the season as a 5.5 forward.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell whether he'll continue it. It's like Gilmore started off, I think, first overhaul. He was sort of picking up passing and people were looking at him as like a season enabler. And then after the first overhaul, I don't think he's barely done anything.
How do you treat captaincy? I mean, I referenced Paul. I know Paul's strategy for the majority of the season is very template in terms of captaincy. Is that your outlook as well?
Yeah, I tend to look at the polls, see who's most popular, and then I guess avoid as much risk as possible. So
it's interesting looking at something like tonight. I presume Cancelo will probably be the most captain player. You're in a position where arguably, maybe because you're chasing, you want to go against possibly, but then the others around you might also be thinking the same.
Yeah, that's the tough part about being at the top is trying to work out what you think other people are going to do as well, because you're basing those decisions on, like, everyone around me is probably thinking the same, in that they need to make that jump to catch up sort of 30, 40 points, which if you go with if you end up captaining the person that first captains, if I captain the same player as Dave, that reduces my chances of catching up. So I need to try and go different to him, but I don't know what he's going to choose. So it's weighing that up.
If you were Dave, would you captain Cancelo tonight?
Yeah.
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 That's probably what Dave will do, wouldn't it? Sorry,
exactly.
Dave.
Yeah, you've got to assume.
I don't even know if he owns Cancelo. I wouldn't have a clue. I'm guessing he's done so well that he probably does. But I think, in Dave's position, he's more about protecting him. It does feel mad, actually. I guess your background, you probably played FPL for longer as well. It does feel mad to be 7th overall and then look at, oh my God, I've got to make differentials, because it does feel for so many of us that it's first or nothing, which isn't quite the case. I obviously mentioned about you maybe even looking at, I mean, you and Suj can play each other on the internet, play FIFA or EAFC or whatever they're calling the new FIFA from next year. You can play each other on your new consoles. But the dynamic's interesting. I mean, from here, would you be gutted to finish, say, 18th as you did last year, or does it not matter to you? I've got to go for it.
I think when you're up that high, you just got to go for it. The difference between the prizes is you met like first is everything, isn't it? Really, like I think is it Luke that says about there's no season history in Sky.
Yeah,
there's no like record of it apart from one that you keep yourself. So no one's ever going to look back and go, oh, well, you finished 18th twice. That was brilliant. You may as well go for the win while you're there.
Would you say people around about 20th could still come first, in your opinion?
I think I haven't looked at exactly how far behind they are, but I think there's plenty of opportunity over the remainder of the season, because if you look at the captains, there are, like, especially on the final day, there's probably about 4 or 5 players you could see scoring a hat-trick. I think Salah's got Wolves at home, Kane and Son away at Norwich.
Chelsea got Watford,
Chelsea
got Villa,
got Watford, and,
Arsenal got Everton.
Exactly. So
yeah,
you pick the right captain on the final day, that you can be looking at 40 points then and there. And then you've got Tottenham, probably a decent shot for captaincy on Sunday.
That's interesting. Let's have a look through the remaining game days in terms of what we fancy, and perhaps we can discuss a few differentials that people might want to consider. So again, I don't want to put you under pressure in terms of revealing your team, because you can, but I don't expect you to at all, mate.
Not too secretive.
No, that's fine. But I guess, I mean, differentials tonight can come from Chelsea, Leicester, maybe even a Vardy punt. Richarlison, I think, has picked up a bit of traction. Is up to sort of about 20% ownership in the top 1,000. Has previously been a bit of a Sky Fantasy darling. I've gone in on Richarlison. I went and got him on Sunday. Or you've even got differentials, obviously, within City.
Yeah.
The likes of Laporte, De Bruyne.
Team tonight for City.
Mahrez is in the team. You'll get to see the team. We think I went and got Mahrez at the weekend. I wasn't overly certain that I've used all my transfers now. I wasn't overly certain that Mahrez would start at the weekend. I actually thought he was very likely to play tonight and at West Ham. My choice was over the 4 weeks, and with what I had remaining, I couldn't get the KDB. I was very lucky that I couldn't get to Ruben Diaz. You didn't end up there, did you?
No.
I absolutely feel it for a lot of people who've used their last transfer on Ruben Diaz. It's just
sensible move, but
absolutely just brutally unlucky. The only reason I never ended up there is because I didn't have the money to make it work, because I haven't got Jacob Ramsey or Norgard, essentially. So there's loads you can go for tonight. Do we think Cancelo is, obviously it's position dependent, but Cancelo is the obvious choice tonight? I think Cancelo's
the best captain, most likely to score most points. But even looking at the City game at the weekend, you can go against it with Laporte. He's capable from set pieces, and he's probably more likely to hit passing tier. So
I wonder if a few who have gone on sort of the Chelsea 4-for-1, if you will, and the last game is tonight of that spell, I wonder if a few of those, I discussed this last week, might feel that I want to get some return out of this and go that way, just psychologically get impacted by that and go, do you know what, if Mount or Havertz or someone like that is in the team, even maybe an offensive player rather than a defensive one, may go for it. Passing tiers defensively against Leeds are not obvious. I think we've only had 9 against them all season, admittedly.
Although I think
the City guys did have a few last week.
Against Marsh, aren't they? Since he's taken over.
Correct.
It's gone up a bit. So you've got more of a chance now. But still.
How would you feel about that? Like, if you owned one of the offensive ones, Mount or Havertz tonight? Because in reality, it's a weak defensively, aren't they, still?
Yeah. I wouldn't be against going for one of those as a differential captain.
Watford have got numerous injuries tonight. It looks like the majority of their team's going to be out. I think the majority of us think Everton will go there and win tonight now. Of course, Leicester played Watford on Sunday as
on
well. I
Sunday.
wonder for those left if they might just try and force in another Leicester still. Kind of look like Sunday probably should have been the one, but
Yeah,
people might just try and force Vardy in one last time, maybe. It's
I
now
think
or never, isn't it? I think.
Norwich and Watford, ideal fixtures. You like if you're going to take a punt, you want someone that's playing Norwich or Watford, really.
Would you, and I don't want to put you on the spot necessarily, but if Vardy wasn't in the team tonight, would you be prepared to punt something that was perhaps more accessible from a price point, like Iheanacho, for example, who did very well for people at the end of last season?
Yeah, I Norwich is the fixture, isn't it? Norwich at home is about as good as it's going to get. So if you are looking to catch up points that no one else is going to get, or very few people,
I feel like
that's the game to go for.
Arguably, that's the one tonight. Is that Leicester team where, again, I think for those like yourself who are 40 points off or so, if you're going for a Vardy or if you want to buy a Vardy, if he's in the team, I think you captain him, don't you? I think, not mean to pressure you. I don't know what you're doing, Neil, but I think you would captain. If I had Vardy tonight and I was in your sort of position, I think that's who I'd want to captain tonight, because it looks like one of the ones left where the ceiling of difference could be really high, I think.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because obviously you'd expect Cancelo. Like Wolves haven't looked very good. So you're looking at a clean sheet. Probably he could get passing. And the way he played at the weekend, he looked pretty offensive as well. So he could hurt you pretty badly. You're taking on probably one of the best captains remaining this season. Well, at some point you've got to, if you want to.
This is part of the problem of the next 5 days, actually, because there are, it's debatable about the Tottenham guys, but there are template options in certainly, say, Saka's ownership is big, sort of 70% of the top 1,000. You could look at it next 5 days, couldn't you? You could go Cancelo, Saka, Cancelo again, Saka again, Salah Tuesday.
Yeah,
and it's template is difficult, isn't it?
I think though, with the Tottenham players, like Kane's at what, 40% in the top 1K, Son's at 30%. It's pretty split.
Yep.
You'd imagine that's going to go up on Thursday. Most people are probably going to have one or the other, but the difference in those two can be big. Like Kane can score a hat trick, Son could go off injured. You're gaining on 50% of the game. Like, and it could go the other way around. Like,
yeah, that feels like
so. Those captains, Tottenham are probably captain potential in their next 3 games.
Yes.
So if you end up on the right side of the Kane Son choice, you could gain plenty of points just through that.
Difficult. I mean, would you prioritize that in the sense that if you compare, say, let's say you've got Kane, and Vardy's in the team tonight, and you were thinking of going Son tomorrow, do you think you consider moving out? Technically, it's 4 Leicester, although we wouldn't necessarily expect Vardy to start all 4, and probably the only captaincy is tonight. Whereas you might make the play to get Son, and you might say, right, well, I'm going to captain him over Kane for the next 3, and the fact I've got Kane as well is going to limit the damage possibly. Would you have a preference in terms of advising others which way they'd lean with that?
I think I'd go Kane over Son probably.
Well, I'm going to say I'd go Sonny at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'd look, and there's been, I think, 94 penalties in the season, and 20 of them have been against Tottenham's remaining opponents, like majority against Norwich.
But Tottenham haven't had many, mate.
No, but the teams they're playing have been giving them away. So I think just for the penalties.
I know Kane wants Shearer's record and he wants the Tottenham scoring record as well. But I think if Tottenham have a bad result tomorrow and then going into the final day, for example,
Golden Boot,
there's nothing on the table for Tottenham but potentially the Golden Boot for Sonny. I genuinely think he might give it to him,
right?
Because they've got a brilliant relationship. They love each other, and I think Harry would love Sonny to to go and win. I mean, Sonny comes out gushing about Kane every time he speaks about him. So I don't think it's impossible that Sonny would have it. But I want to say we've had, I can't even think of a penalty we've had this season. I think maybe we've had 3 in all comps. I want to say maybe not many at all. If Harry wasn't around for whatever reason, it certainly would be Sonny that would take it. I've got a slight preference for Sonny at the moment. I just think it's the form horse. He's potentially going for the golden boot. He's cheaper than Kane. So I think those who don't have, it might come down, the decision might come down to affordability. I think Son's ownership will jump more tomorrow night than Kane's. So I think Kane's more owned, I want to say, at the moment.
It's about 40-30, I think.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if come tomorrow night, it's more like 60-50.
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know. Difficult to squeeze in both unless maybe you're sacrificing Mo Salah, but there's a case to do so. I think perhaps especially a lot of people got obviously Van Dijk now as well. If you don't intend to captain Mo Salah final day, you could say, look, I'm going to go without. It's 3 fixtures of Tottenham. Do you potentially want it?
Game day would be hard watch though.
It's scary, but then
if he starts,
well, that's it. Is there even a guarantee that he starts? I mean, if you were in that position where you had 2 or 3 transfers left, if I said to you now, Mo Salah's not going to start at Southampton, you'd sell him for Son or Kane, probably, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah,
or Vardy tonight.
Discussed it in the Slack last night, and I wasn't brave enough to move him on, but if they are prioritising the cups, is he going to get a rest in one of those final 2 ready for the Champions League?
I wouldn't say they're prioritising it, but you'd have to think if City win tonight and City win at West Ham on Sunday, it's over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just from the goal difference perspective as well. I mean, you wouldn't expect Villa to go to City and win final day, but that little bit of goal difference as well, you got to think City are going to only add to it with 2 wins by, even if it's just +2 more, they're going to add to it. By the time Liverpool play at Southampton, it might be 10 goal difference or so. I mean, Southampton's the team you'd want to play probably in that situation, chasing that down. But the chance I would look over, wouldn't it? I think possibly. I mean, Saka's ownership's massive though, isn't it? There's no reason that he should be overlooked tomorrow night, is there?
Yeah, it's at Tottenham though, isn't it?
It is, but Arsenal know they can finish the job tomorrow, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the longer it stays 0-0, I think the interesting aspect of both the teams is they'll want the other team to have the ball. Both are more dangerous when they're counter-attacking on the other. And the game is obviously set up for Arsenal to do so more than Tottenham. So, I mean, the longer it goes on, the more dangerous Arsenal might be on the counter-attack if it stays level. That said, Tottenham could start fast pace, and if Tottenham get in front, that will swing completely the other way around, for example.
Yeah.
But we've also... I mean, do you expect that to be high scoring? I think a lot of people think psychologically Tottenham and Arsenal will be high scoring. I don't. I see it being very low scoring tomorrow night, actually.
It could be quite cagey, but like you say, if there is an early goal, then
maybe,
especially if it's for Tottenham, it's going to open it. Arsenal are going to have to try and counter that, aren't they?
Are there any other Tottenham players you'd consider at this stage? I mean, Kulusevski, I don't suppose will be far out of people's thoughts. And also
especially that Norwich game on the last day.
Ryan Sessegnon, interestingly, he's 7.2, and I think you do look at the last Tottenham 2 games after Arsenal and think, tell you what, could be back-to-back clean sheets. And with Reguilon's injury, I think we could feel more assured of him playing. Ordinarily, someone like Ryan Sessegnon would be an abysmal pick for Sky Fantasy, even at 7.2, because there's no tiers in it at all. But if he's starting on 7 points potentially for the last 2, if you think there's the 2 clean sheets there, attack and return, I mean, in theory, he could get 20 plus in the 3 games, couldn't he? And then I think that there's a case to consider him if you've got excess transfers, I'd say.
This sort of time as well, tiers are almost not so important.
Nah.
You're looking for that explosive return, which is going to involve attacking returns, especially if you're chasing. Fair enough, in Dave's position, you can go safe and just keep churning out the tiers. But if you're trying to catch someone up, you need someone that is going to have that 2-goal involvement.
0.1% owns, and 1 person in the top 1,000 as Ryan Sessegnon. I think he's possibly an interesting one for the last 3 for people who want to get involved. I mean, I wouldn't be looking to captain him tomorrow night. And I don't think you would, because of the remaining fixture. I don't think you would be looking to put the captaincy on him. But perhaps if you're sitting there with 3 or 4 left or so still, I mean, it's a case to say you want to attack something in the next 2 days. And if you're really trying to make up 40, 50 points or so, I think someone like him could be interesting. Your opponent's probably not going to have Tottenham defensive. Almost definitely. The majority of people won't go down that route. Any consideration for the likes of a Gabriel, who's quite consistent? It feels like he'll probably only get the passing tiers though if Arsenal were losing.
Yeah. No, he's good. He's good, decent Sky asset, but in my position where I'm looking to catch up in big chunks now, he's not really that sort of player for me.
Yeah, I hear you. If someone was saying to you, I'm 20 points behind in the mini league, I want to buy Son or Kane tomorrow, you'd say Kane, would you? Is that the way you'd be leaning?
Well, yeah, depends completely on if you know who above you, who they've got. But I think if you didn't know, I'd go Kane, but it is pretty much a coin flip.
We haven't helped anyone because I'd go Sonny, which leads us nicely on to Sunday, because obviously Tottenham go again, and arguably have the most attractive fixture with Burnley at home. It's worth saying, if you've gone Vardy and they've got Watford away, the problem with that, I think, for Sunday is you won't see the Leicester team, because Tottenham Burnley's the 12 o'clock, which also makes City the obvious risk away to West Ham. But then their defensive issues mean
they can't.
They're playing, aren't
Cancelo.
They're absolutely. Cancelo and Laporte are definitely playing, aren't they? You'd be amazed, I think, if De Bruyne didn't start. The likes of Mahrez, Foden would be a concern, wouldn't it? You're really going to struggle to go there. Whereas if they're in the team tonight, I think you can play it that way.
Yeah. But yeah, West Ham, they're still trying to get a European spot, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They're 3 points behind Manchester United. Their goal difference is much better. And obviously United don't play till the last day. West Ham finished with Brighton away, which is obviously tough as well. I think if City win tonight, West Ham might get something on Sunday, because I think City will just go in with the mentality of cannot lose. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised. And also, there's definitely the danger to City on Sunday of the aerial threat if they're having to play Fernandinho at centre-back, with the likes of Antonio, if he's available, because he's possibly a doubt as well. So checks, late runs, them set pieces, they're such a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, I'm probably captaining Son on Sunday, but I can't commit to that. I think till the Tottenham Arsenal game's gone on Thursday, because I think if Arsenal do win tomorrow night and then 12 o'clock on Sunday, the atmosphere is going to be so flat and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd arguably look elsewhere. Whereas if Tottenham get the positive result tonight, then it's possibly, if Tottenham win on Thursday night, then go in with a chance to go 1 point, 1 point clear, or 2 points clear, I think, wouldn't it? If we win both games on Sunday, then the atmosphere will be lively, even for a 12 o'clock kickoff, and it's Burnley. And I'd want to go that way. So I mean, at the moment, I would have Sonny penciled in for captain Sunday, actually, over Cancelo and stuff, because I think West Ham will score.
Yeah, I can see that happening easily. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd consider from the differentials on Sunday? Sunday feels like the wrong time to buy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like you've got 8 teams playing tonight and another 2 tomorrow night. You've got your choice of 10 teams to potentially get an advantage of going into Sunday. Would admittedly, obviously, Chelsea don't play on Sunday, but Sunday's not going to be a day for transfers, is it?
No, I don't think so. Would
you consider the likes of Zaha at home to Palace or Richarlison at home to Brentford? Does it feel, or does Sunday feel like it's got to be Tottenham or City?
I think so. It depends where you are and how far behind you are. Like, I won't make a decision until I see what happens over the next couple of days. Like, if I'm even further behind, trying to catch up even more points, then you have
I understand that. I think for me, sunny Sunday. I think I do intend to go sunny tomorrow night as well. I've got Son and Saka. Monday night, obviously, Arsenal go to Newcastle. Presumably, if you want the Arsenal player, you buy tomorrow night, don't you? I think.
Yeah.
In the majority of cases, particularly if we say Tottenham moving Salah to Nketiah, even at the moment, if it facilitates something else, if you've got a couple of moves, would you consider him at this late stage, Nketiah?
I wouldn't personally, but I think,
Neither would Suj.
yeah, you might regret that.
Tell me about it. He's 7.3. I think he's got his Mankini at the ready. I think he's got 17 points twice in his
Yeah,
last 4 games. 40 points in his last 4. So he's averaging at 10 over the 4 games.
I just think for me, it doesn't fit my formation, and there's just too much doubt over whether he would keep his place all the way through to the end of the season. He probably has done enough.
I think he probably will now. Yeah, actually, I think so. I think Arsenal fans will be up in arms if he doesn't.
But if he's leaving, then
yeah, I guess you could make the case that obviously if they wrap it up tomorrow night,
if they wrap it up and the season's over and he's leaving.
But then what's the alternative? Who play Lacazette, who's also out of
farewell
contract.
Lacazette.
Could go Martinelli through the middle. I mean, Akecha he's 0.1 more than Sessegnon. Interestingly, if you're looking for a differential from tomorrow night to get the final 3 games of one of the North London clubs, and Akecha versus Sessegnon, where would you sit if I defined it like that?
I think probably Sessegnon.
Yeah, interesting. I'd arguably agree because of the last 2 more than obviously tomorrow. And I think you're probably not factoring in the captaincy. Most people will, as we know, most have got Saka. There's a little bit of ownership still knocking out about for the likes of Gabriel and Ramsdale. Saka's obviously going to be really popular Monday. That feels like a difficult one to go against. Even though it's a tricky game for Arsenal.
I don't think you can. Well, if you've got someone else, maybe you can go against it. But if you've just got Saka, and I don't think it's worth transferring someone in.
If people have held on to Bruno Guimaraes Monday night?
Yeah. He's mainly just going to be tears, isn't he? He's not like I know he scored 2 goals at a good time for people, but I don't think he is particularly a goal scorer. He's a good player, but he could be a good player for Sky next year, depending on his price. If Newcastle strengthen and they keep him more possession.
I think a lot of people are very aware of him for next season, but I also think his price will probably reflect that at the start of next season as well. Tuesday night, we've got Liverpool, Southampton. Could you make any case to go back for Liverpool next Tuesday? We'll obviously have an extra game over many.
Over City, they've got an extra game, haven't they?
Yeah. And obviously you'll get the benefit of the team, which I think opens up the idea. I'm talking about differential punts, hit that big captain at the end.
Yeah.
Mane's, Jota's, Diaz's.
The problem with those is you just wouldn't be sure they'd start both, would they?
No, that's true. That's another factor. But I think
you can end up taking a 2-for-1 that ends up being a 1-for-1. And
yeah, but if you hit it like a few did, obviously Ferran Torres against Newcastle last year, I don't think you're not that bothered, are you?
No, true.
If you get the hat trick on the night, and that's the difference between, say, you and first at the moment.
Yeah,
and I think people in your position have to consider where can I find the Ferran Torres? Really, that's what you're looking for. Where's that Ferran Torres haul?
Yeah.
And Liverpool at Southampton offers a few
that's true.
where you have to make the decision on the night. Mane's in great form, isn't he?
Yeah.
But it feels like he's due to be the one that misses out next Tuesday. I think keep thinking Mane's due to rest. Mane's due to rest.
They've just got so many good options now going forwards that they can afford to rest them.
Next Thursday, interestingly, I don't think there'll be too many options knocking about, actually. So, I mean, as it stands, next Thursday, I've got Nick Pope. I haven't got any Villa. I haven't got any Chelsea now. I've got Dewsbury Hall is sitting in for Leicester. And I've got Richarlison against Palace. So for me at the moment, it would be Richarlison. From that, I'm out of transfers. So there's nothing I can do if I was to lose him. I guess I'd just default to Pope. I guess I would have to possibly. But that's a night where it's really open again as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a night you can buy a Chelsea player.
Yeah. Ideally, would you like to be in at that point and still have a transfer left? Or do you feel like these 2 nights are the 2 to get it done?
Ideally, if you had a transfer then, again, it's difficult with a Chelsea team, isn't it? You never know. But if you could buy a Chelsea player that night when there's going to be a split in captaincy, and then you were going to get them for Watford at home on the final day,
Well, arguably, there's one player I think most of us thought we would be considering this year who we haven't. Again, owned by one person in the top thousands, Romelu Lukaku, 11.3. It's another one, isn't it? If you captain Salah Tuesday night and your intention is to go against him on Sunday with Son or whomever, or do you even look at that and go Lukaku twice?
Yeah.
Effective 4 for 1. If you thought he was going to start twice, captain against Leicester, captain against Watford. We'll certainly pick that up as a conversation again next week once we've got the Chelsea information from tonight and obviously Saturday's FA Cup final. But I think, again, it's another one that's got a high ceiling, isn't it? Leicester at home and Watford at home.
It's the sort of move that can quickly catch up those points.
I think if I'd have been in a stronger position where I was really hunting down mini leagues and stuff, I would have wanted to hold one for that night and just punt the Chelsea as and when you see the team when you get there. I think, again, we'll discuss that more next week, but I think that's possibly a clever play. And I think if you're coming off Salah, as I said, with no intention to captain the last one, then you can go, you've got your choice of anyone in the Chelsea team, basically, bar obviously Edward Mendy. Before we let you go, Neil, I'd like to follow with a few questions we've had come in on Twitter from the community. Mr. Ian Parron, Mr. Planet Sky says, James openly admits he changed his method a few weeks back to deliberately go against certain players chasing a rank rise. How has Neil's playing style changed the closer he has got to the top of the leaderboard at the back end of the season? So, I mean, did you have like a trigger point where you kind of moved from I'm going template captain to I'm now going differential, or have you still not hit that point?
It's probably last weekend, I'd say. I went against Salah on Saturday with Rudiger, which didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. But I think he gained me like 1 point. But
Neil's just revealed 2 players in his team. Write it down.
But yeah, I think before that I was quite comfortable with being well above the average in terms of transfers remaining and looking at using the fixture gains to catch up those points. Obviously, Chelsea haven't quite done as well as I was hoping.
Yeah, it's been a real letdown, hasn't it?
So that's left me a bit further behind than I would have liked to have been. I still think with like the Son Kane split, there's going to be the chance to catch up those points.
They're probably both getting 2 points. They're probably both getting 2 points tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, but there's potential that one of them gets like 20 and the other doesn't.
It's difficult to foresee a haul in them tomorrow night. I know it's maybe 20 points. Yeah.
Yeah, but even through the remainder of the season, like the Burnley game and the Norwich game, if you do captain one or the other, you can easily get on the right side of it and catch up those points.
I've got a question I'd like to throw in, actually. Which, and it's okay, obviously, if you don't know the answer to this, which goalkeeper do you think you've owned the most this season?
I did have a look, actually, before I came on here.
This doesn't necessarily have to be the one you've got now. Which one do you think you've had the most?
I think it was close between Pope and Ramsdale.
Okay. And I think that'd be similar for a lot of people. A few people might have had Jose Sarr.
I did have a look through my team before I came on.
Do you reflect?
42 players.
Do you reflect on players like that and think, I wish I just had Alisson there this year, or another one in midfield? I wish I just had Rodri there all year, even though they cost a little bit more. I'm looking at next year and thinking, you know what, how much am I going to save on transfers if I just have those 2 guys sitting there, for example, who I know what they're going to kind of get points wise at the end of the season. Rodri, I think, 2nd or 3rd now for midfielders. He's got more points than De Bruyne, for example. Alisson's comfortably clear of 1st, but then you probably never captain Alisson.
Yeah, I think.
And then the captaincies come back for the cheaper ones, don't they?
Single game day captaincies for like Pope, especially this season. He's had quite a few. Like once you factor in those points that you're getting on top of their base points, they're probably not far off sort of your Alisson and your Edison.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back and do some analysis on that in the summer, because I remember when we started in year 1, and me and Serge didn't really have a clue what we were doing. Everybody said to us, just get Edison or Alisson, whichever one you want. It was like
Alisson's
definitive. Just do
Alisson's more likely to get you save tiers
exactly
to go with
that.
the clean sheets.
Yeah.
Edison, it's I know you got one at the weekend, but I think majority of the time you're just getting the clean sheet points, which.
But that extra you get for the clean sheet, you don't need to be sweating there and counting the passes, do you? I mean, Edison nearly hits them sometimes, in fairness. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I've keeper's interesting. I think you're absolutely right, Neil, to say once you add up the extras of the Popes and the Ramsdales and stuff, probably adds up. But then it's the transfers as well, because you tend not to stick with just Pope or just Sarr or just Ramsdale. You tend to move them about, don't you?
I've only had 4 different keepers this season.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably.
So
I make more transfers on keepers. Not as many this year as last year. I mean, last year I had 7 or 8 on keepers, and actually it'd been. I finished 30th last year. It'd been a successful strategy for me, actually, where I'd got more points than the majority with goalkeepers.
Yeah, I think
once you take those 8 transfers away and you've just left it on Allison's 8 transfers for other stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gary Fantamantle says, I'm transferring a Spurs striker on Thursday. Is it pretty much a 50-50 in personal preference? Was there a clear best option? He's at 750th, aiming to get top 500. He also says he's got 5 Man City players, which is very interesting. Yeah. Go with a differential City tonight, Gary.
Yeah,
as we've covered, we haven't 50, decided 50. Between us. Yeah,
I'd imagine
it really is.
From that position, trying to climb. You'd imagine that because Son's been doing better recently, then the concentration of Son owners is probably higher. So maybe if you're trying to catch them, maybe go Kane.
Yeah,
so he's more likely to be a differential on the people above you.
Tom Hartnell says, this is specifically for you, Neil. What would you say were the key decisions factors that have put you in 7th?
Well, I've definitely been lucky because I avoided a lot
I think there's got to be a lot of skill in there as well, Neil, in fairness.
Yeah, I think I got lucky there was a few injuries at the start of the season, weren't there, to quite highly owned players. I avoided most of those. And then obviously with the postponements, I don't think they affected my players too much. So that's carried me through probably to be higher. But
so Tom, Neil says luck. That's it, mate. Roll the dice.
I don't think I've done anything spectacularly
different.
Can't
be. The planning's got to be such a huge part of what you do, mate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do a lot of planning. I've got plenty of spreadsheets, but and obviously use yours as well.
Nice cheap plug. No one's using it now because you don't need it now.
Yeah, the Slack group obviously helps.
Yes, I mean the Slack community
in there to bounce your ideas off and are
great. And we've got 4 or 5, I think, in the top 10 at the moment of our patrons in there at the moment doing brilliant work.
I think as well, having someone like there's a guy called Josh in there who I have bugged a lot with transfer plans, and just having someone to bounce those ideas off and look at whether you're making sensible decisions. I think that helps.
You can always bounce them off me, mate. You might not get the right advice. I get that a lot. People ask my advice. James, I'm 10th. What are you asking me for? I'm not the one with the bloody nose sweating about it. We'll finish with Barry Allen says, first season playing Sky, weekly pods have really helped. What are the key things to consider for the start of next season? I guess some of us, like myself, are already without transfers. Our mind's already thinking to that, things I've said about keepers and players like Rodri and enablers like Norgard, who we spoke about last week, going, I wish he just sat there all season and hadn't moved.
Yeah, all that sort of thing. I think definitely the budget enablers, cheap players from promoted sides that are going to just churn out tackle tiers. And
is there anything we think we've learned this year? Because I think one of the dangers this year will be the forwards. Kane for the first half of the season, certainly. Lukaku has been nowhere, and Ronaldo has done quite well recently, actually, but most have missed it and got really frustrated with the kind of January period that he had. Have been a real letdown. So I think there's a temptation to start of next season to say, okay, I just want Salah. Son's probably in for a price hike. 5-3-2. That's obvious. I'm going to win the game, but it's not necessarily going to work like that, is it?
No, I think you need to make sure you have the flexibility to cover off those players when they're going to be very highly owned.
And
if you miss out a hat trick,
and there's a new beast we know is obviously going to be entering the league next year in early Holland
from the start.
Do you expect them to price him with Salah? right at the top? Or
You'd have to, wouldn't you? Player like that going into that City team.
can you foresee that they jump up Salah? I mean, he's basically been kind of at the scene. I think I saw someone put he was 13.2 a
Right.
couple of years ago, which seems to have been the kind of top level. I'd want him to come in like 14 or something personally, and make people's decision really difficult. Otherwise, when
Yeah.
you want him, he's always still going to be 80-90% owned, isn't he?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I think they could. It'd be interesting if they improved the pricing. Like it has been a bit too easy, I think, at times. Like when you've got like Cancelo, Rudiger, Laporte all around like 9 million. And
Neil, if you finish first, I will remind you that you said it was easy.
not the game itself, but some of the pricing. Like there's been too many sort of obvious template players.
I think with the postponements and stuff this year, I think a lot of people have felt more fatigue than normal, not just in Sky Fantasy, but just general fantasy football management, where like you said, you said, and you've been honest, you didn't suffer too much with the postponements and stuff like that. Others have, and you feel like that planning gets screwed up and
I think
you throw out the window. I mean, a lot of people have felt a little bit more fatigued this year, and it's felt like the battle to rise this year has felt harder. I think there's a few reasons for that. One is the pricing of the game. I think a lot of the players are priced too low, and actually opening them up to higher pricing will open up a selection of other players that we'd never consider. For example, I can't remember what my other point was going to be now. It's gone completely over my head. Pricing and James, this is why you should let Suj run the podcast. Honestly, I can't remember. Maybe it'll come to me in a second. But Neil, thank you so much for your time. Where can everyone give you a follow on Twitter, mate?
Yeah, at FPL Kernow on Twitter.
And Neil's also promised to all the patrons that he'll be revealing his team tonight. Not, he won't actually, because Mr. Perrins and the others near the top, we wish you the best of luck, but don't rule Neil out, I'm telling you. Don't rule him out. He's still got a chance. Normally at this point, guys, I would say cue the music. I haven't remembered what my missing point was. But what you're about to hear now is Suj, a couple of minutes of Suj, telling you why he's the manager of the month for May and how he's going to win a console. But for the rest of you, thanks very much. Thanks again to Neil. Ciao for now, I guess. And maybe Suj will cue the music. Who knows?
Morning, James. Morning, Neil. Firstly, thanks to Neil for jumping in on the Planet SkyFF for me today, away with work. So can't be on the show, especially disappointing because I'm in the middle of obviously my quest for May Manager of the Month. Thought I'd drop in a little video and a bit of a voice note for the podcast listeners just to say hello and let you know how we're getting on. So we are now 6 days through the 12 match days of May, so we're exactly halfway. And yes, if you haven't seen on Twitter, number one for May Manager of the Month is me as it stands at the moment. I'm incredibly surprised with that, but also planned for it, thinking that I might have a couple of Liverpool players last night that some people wouldn't have gone in on Liverpool, and if people had gone in on Liverpool, perhaps the likes of Salah, who obviously didn't start. I went in on Matip and I had Diaz as well. So a Diaz assist for a Mane goal and a Matip goal, like I couldn't have asked for any more, particularly after Matip didn't start on the weekend. Still have 10 players left to go in this week over today and tomorrow, so quite a few. It's quite tight at the top of the table. I mean, 20 points separating the top kind of 15 or so. And that's just one good captaincy. So I'm still nervous about today. Got quite a few City to choose from, and the decision still needs to be made whether to go with the safe pick of Cancelo or try and look for a big upside with KDB. Got 3 players in the Arsenal Spurs game tomorrow, whether we go with Sonny because it's a home fixture or Gabriel with the passing tiers. But yeah, still a lot of decisions to make in the coming days. Obviously, we have Saturday off, no transfers on Sunday, and then looking at Arsenal, Liverpool next week before we go into the final stretch. So good luck to everybody. I know there's quite a few of you patrons in the chasing pack for May Manager of the Month. You will be banned from Patreon if you beat me. so don't. And also to the managers that we know who are chasing the big prize as well, the 50,000. Only a couple more episodes before the end of the season, so once again a massive shout out and good luck to you all. Keep your fingers crossed, stay safe, and ciao for now.